Okay, I see that people are still joining in, but we can begin with the introduction. So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's GSTC webinar on sustainable business travel. My name is Roy Ariel, the GSTC General Manager, and I will be the moderator of this session. First, let me introduce our main speaker today, Bernard Harrop. Currently an independent consultant in the business travel industry, Bernard was formerly a European Executive Board member with American Express and head of global sales with British Airways. In addition to managing his own corporate consulting company, he was the head of sustainability for Project Icarus, a GBTA Foundation initiative to integrate sustainability into business travel. He currently lectures in sustainability at Marbella University Business School and Carnfield University, and has been previously voted as one of the top 25 most influential executives in global corporate travel by Business Travel News. For the Q&A part at the end, we will also have Horst Bayer joining us. Horst managed corporate travel programs for Siemens USA and Hitachi Data Systems in Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. After 2 decades, he founded TravelHorse Sustainable Business Travel Consulting, dedicated in helping multinational corporations transforming their corporate travel programs to be sustainable. Horst is also chair of the Business Travel Working Group at GSTC. He is trained climate reality leader and devoted to solving the global climate crisis. As for myself, I have been focusing on sustainable tourism and responsible and for myself, I have been focusing on responsible travel and sustainable tourism over the past decade. Before joining GSTC in 2016, I've been with the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, UNESCO, the Pacific Asia Travel Association, PADA, Ecopeace Middle East, as well as Sustainable Tourism Advisor in various countries. Before we get started with the presentation, please note that the question field at the bottom or on the side of the Zoom panel. You're welcome to post your questions at any time during the session, but we will address all of the questions and answer them during the Q&A after the presentation. In case we have not been able to answer some of your questions, you're always welcome to email us at business.travel@gstcouncil.org. Now, let me go and provide a short introduction to the GSTC before we give the stage to Bernard. So the GSTC, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, is the leading global authority in setting and managing standards for sustainable travel and tourism. We, at the moment, and also already 15 years ago, we knew that there are many labels, many standards, many schemes out there that proclaim that they verify sustainability claims of hotels, accommodations, destinations, and so forth. But so many labels create confusion. And that's what brought the creation of the GSTC in 2007, where these founding organizations, the United Nations Foundation, the UNWTO, UNEP, and Rainforest Alliance, together with a coalition of 32 other organizations, both from the public sector, the private sector, and also the NGO sector, to establish the GSTC in order to create a standardized form of understanding of what sustainable tourism is and to easily identify it when we look at tourism businesses. Therefore, the GSTC criteria was developed originally with more than 80,000 people, including conservationists, tourism industry leaders, governments, and UN agencies that commented on the drafting and the creation of the GSTC criteria. More than 4,500 criteria were analyzed from existing 60 certification standards back then in 2007, and other voluntary sets of standards, principles, and guidelines. At the moment, we have two sets of GSTC criteria. One is the GSTC criteria for the industry that is being used by hotels that cater both for travelers that come for leisure, or also business travelers, as well as tour operators. The criteria has been revised a number of times. The latest was in 2016, and also the revision process is also going through a rigorous process of consultation, drafting, providing information to anyone who is willing to provide input. And also we ask specific organizations and professionals to provide this input. The second set is for destinations, meaning tourism destinations, again, both relevant for leisure and business travel. The four pillars of the GSTC criteria, which set it so unique and important, is that it's not only focusing on environmental perspectives, as was common with sustainability standards in the past. And nowadays, many standards are using the GSTC criteria within them. So let's go quickly over the four pillars. First is demonstrate effective sustainable management, maximize economic benefits to host community and minimize negative impacts, maximize benefits to communities, visitors, cultures, minimize negative impacts, and maximize benefits to the environment and minimize negative impacts. So in short, you can see that the first is dealing with sustainable management, the second is socio-economical perspective, the third is cultural aspects, and the fourth relates to the environmental perspective. A quick overview of the GSTC programs. A crucial program of the GSTC is an accreditation program, which I will explain shortly afterwards. That means that we accredit certification bodies and also verify standards. Market access, where we work to increase demand and access for sustainable products. And sustainable tourism training program, capacity building for all stakeholders, as we will also discuss further towards the end of this webinar as well, about our new course for sustainable business travel. We also have a destination program where we work with destinations to be managing them more sustainably. And all of these activities are driven by the GSTC criteria, which is the core activities and mandate of the GSTC, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. So quickly to explain what it means, the accreditation program, this is a verification and assurance perspective of certification of hotels. So hotels, tour operators, and destinations are being certified by certification bodies. GSTC, together with a partner called ASI, we accredit those certification bodies, which means we verify the process of how they certify. So again, this is also something that relates to other programs that the GSTC is involved in, such as the market access, where GSTC is promoting to large entities using certification as a mode to verify hotels, tour operators and destinations as sustainable. Now, I'd like to clarify something that we sometimes see as a confusion, where people take business travel as something that is a whole different sector from the whole. Now, let me highlight something related to business travel and how we see at GSTC sustainable tourism. When we say sustainable tourism, it doesn't refer to a specific type of tourism, but rather it's an aspiration for all impacts of all forms of tourism to be more sustainable. And in that sense, the GSTC criteria is also used by hotels and businesses that focus on business travel. And therefore, those that are involved within business travel can see themselves as active within the whole tourism industry. And in that sense, the GSTC criteria is relevant for those working in the business travel, especially that business travel has been, well, of course, we know that over the past year and a half during the pandemic has been less, but pre-COVID, the business travel has been a strong and important part of the tourism industry. Now, I like to give the stage to Bernard Harrop, our main speaker for today. So Bernard, you can turn on your camera and I will turn off my camera and you can go ahead. Thank you very much.
Good day to everybody. Thank you very much. Delighted to see so many people have joined the call. It really is a good sign that sustainability and corporate responsibility is rising up the agenda even quicker than we anticipated. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this session. I want to talk about the future for sustainable business travel and also about what we can do about it. What are the things that are going to help us change the future? So the agenda for today would be to say we're not quite in a post-pandemic situation yet. We're getting close to it, hopefully, before the injections and everything come together. So what does the future hold as we move forward? How will business travel change if it does? The GSTC criteria that Roy just mentioned then applied to sustainability, the 4 pillars of sustainability in business travel, global business travel, and what's the options for a new business travel program. So I'm going to kind of go through this. We're all in the middle of the pandemic in one stage or another. So what we need to do is quantify the impact, and I'll come to some of those things in a minute. And also look at how people have been impacted by the pandemic and still being impacted. And what will the future hold for business travel? And do we have to change any of our models, business models that we've had for many years in many organizations in business travel? And also the rising importance of people, risk, safety and security. You know, all these things are at the forefront of people's minds. And we've seen many papers, many discussions all around these same sorts of subjects as we move forward. For those who are new to business travel, around about 12% of air travel comes from business passengers, and 75% of that is the airline's profits. So airlines in particular are very dependent on business passengers. And traditionally business passengers have traveled business class, first class, they've traveled around the world. You know, they're adventurers in their own right. But this was a slide, when I was putting this presentation together, I pulled this slide out, which I did a few years ago. And it talks about going forward. It talks about the old norm, the new normal. And the new normal, by necessity, requires a new corporate approach, putting travelers at the heart of the travel program and creating value. If I tell you that slide I wrote in 2008, just after the financial crisis. And what it shows is that because after the financial crisis, the marketplace recovered reasonably quickly, almost a year or just more, nothing really changed. And we're talking today about exactly the same things on, over 10 years on. So we need to see what actually is different this time. And I think what's different this time is, you know, anybody of those old enough to remember Star Trek will see that it's not life as we knew it anymore. Life has changed. You're working from home, people with half undressed at the desk and all that kind of thing. So life is different. You know, how many times have people said to you, I will Zoom you tomorrow rather than I'll call you or I'll visit you. So life has changed, and it's changed irrevocably, probably, but it's changed to such an extent that we have to change the way we do our business because, as you'll see in a second, many people are talking very negatively about the business travel industry. But it's not just that that's changed. If you look at the numbers and you look at what's happened in the environment, this is a slide from Southern Europe, and it shows March, April 1919, the level of atmospheric issues and problems in health, in terms of breathing, etc. So the whole situation has changed when we go forward to April 2020, where it's virtually clear. I live about half an hour from Malaga Airport, and I remember about a month in to the complete lockdown in Spain, when there were no flights taking place, I started to see the sky was a lot clearer. There's no signs in the sky, no aeroplanes coming through. I also started to notice it was quieter. There's less traffic on the road. And in the evenings, you could hear the birds singing, but you could also hear the animals, which you'd never really had before to that extent. So it actually made me wake up and say, wow, this is different. This is fundamentally different. And when you see that, one of the reasons why, this is a chart showing the airline business travel forecasts. If you see what happened at the left-hand side, 2020, the airline activity dropped dramatically. It's hard to quantify exactly, but about 20% of the traffic from a year before. So you can see that the market in the airline business just completely disappeared, which is why we saw the clean air around where I live and other places. But what's also quite frightening from an industry that wants to recover and wants to get back to some kind of normality, the original business class forecast was in blue. Sorry, business travel forecast is the top line in blue, and that was showing in the region of 2.5 billion flights by the time we got into 2039. Whereas the revised forecast from Cranfield University is showing just over 1 billion in that time, which is almost the same as the forecast that was given in 2019. So the market, as we all know, you don't need me to tell you, the market, as you all know, is really on the floor. So how do we get it back? And how do we get it back better? It's hard to understand how we get it back at the moment when you see headlines like some of these. You know, you see Bill Gates talking about 50% of business travel to disappear. The CEO of Air New Zealand, very few airlines will continue as they are. We need new ways of working. Many sectors think that the loss will be long and will last for a long time. That's in the US. More than half the US customers say they will travel on vacation later this year, but less than 85% be the forecast for April on business travel. United Airlines are saying it won't recover to 2024. 6 big investment firms, and this is reasonably new, in the UK, have said they will no longer invest in Deliveroo, the fast food delivery company. It went to the market last week, 2 weeks ago, because of concerns over workers' rights. And there's a trend coming through here, which we're going to refer to later, which talks about the impact of people and the impact of the way that we've traditionally treated people to where maybe we need to be different going forward. And the other thing as well in hotels, Airbnb now are looking to build a huge new market all around remote workers working from home and anywhere they want to. You know, I have a son who works in an office just outside of London normally, but he's spent the last 6-9 months working from home. And his company have now changed their rules to allow him to work at home, to avoid all the traffic and things of that kind. So life has fundamentally changed compared to that slide I showed earlier. There's also a new generation of upcoming travelers. People who've been traveling a long time will find it hard to change unless they're pushed into it. But core business travel will change, but how and why? And in particular, as far as we're concerned here with GSTC and the environment, is what are the consequences for responsible and sustainable business travel? Okay, here's a list of needs and wants that we've developed, which shows that most of the needs and wants tend to come around people. The quality of life has suddenly come to life. People want to live in the UK where I live, in the UK where I used to live. People now are buying houses on the coast near the water. The biggest increase in house prices is on the south coast, near the likes of Bournemouth or Cornwall. So people are happy now to go and live a better life as they see it, maybe a safer life, but still do their work in a similar way. Less travel, but better. The family that is coming through all the time. Family is important. Well-being programs are really top of the tree. Human rights, ethics, equity, equality are all top of the tree these days when you see what's happening around the world in diversity, for example. Another thing, of course, is the fear of another virus may come along. You know, it's happened once, could it happen again? So new technology, etc., is also coming along, like Zoom, and it's not new technology, it's old technology, but the use of it is new in many respects. Traveller safety and security, home working, office facilities are getting less. When you look at some of the pictures I see of the major cities around the world, you'll see today there's very few people there because people are stopping going into towns. One, because they've been told to by their governments. Secondly, they find it more convenient not to and shop online. So the whole thinking about life as we know it is changing, or has changed a lot. So what will the business travel industry do? We don't know yet. We see lots of words at the moment, and we see some little bits of moves, but we're still trying to sort out what it is we should do for the best. Clearly, we need to change our business models to address the new issues. We need to develop low carbon modes of transportation in our business, because that will encourage more people to travel, potentially, if they know that their carbon footprint is going to be stable or reduced dramatically. And understand more about how travel impacts employee daily life. I did a white paper about 8 to 9 years ago with a company who were having trouble with their employees because they changed the travel program and they reduced the cost of travel by stopping people traveling in first class or business class. And employees there were very upset about it. And we'd worked out just by cutting travel, save them money, which was great. But the impact on their business and performance and productivity was a loss of about 9%. So it's not simple enough as to say, stop traveling. There are more things to be taken into account and more. The GSTT have the 4 pillars in their organization for leisure travel. What we have here is the 4 pillars that we've developed based on the GSTT sustainability model, which we want to apply to business travel. And the 4 pillars are around social and culture, safety and security, wellness. And the reason we're doing this is to say, these are the key things that you need to get involved in your business. Your travel program, we recommend, needs to have a good raft of these sort of things based on the needs of your organization. If you look on the economics, you can't have a program that just spends money. You've got to get the balance right. Measuring the impact of sustainability on the finance, and maybe treating sustainability as an investment, treating travel as an investment, but different metrics to measure it and see the value that that will bring to your company. But of course, the planet, you know, this move to protect the planet is getting greater and greater, more people getting involved. And of course, a big target is transport, less so accommodation, but transport. So the impact of CO2 and other pollutants by transport, the methodologies need to be addressed, and we need to put more focus on carbon footprint, because believe me, I've seen it happen. Many companies have been stopped from investing. Investors now are looking to the future to say, if I want to invest money in that company to get a return, there's a clear history of companies that have become more sustainable, more responsible, but they've also delivered better profits. And we can show examples of that to demonstrate that that is the case. Not always, but that is the case. And the 4th pillar is management. We've got the 4 Ps as we call, 4 pillars, but 3 of them are activities and things to do. The 4th one is, how do we manage all these new things? How do we maintain a healthy balance between the mechanics and the issues of management? So let me go through them one by one to just briefly cover them. Putting people first, this is an old saying, I know, but it's very relevant, I think, in today's world. Employee welfare and well-being programs have risen to the top. I've said safety and security, inclusion, equality, diversity, and cultural issues matter more than ever, as we've seen from the news all around the world. wellness and mental health needs supporting. So we need, as GSCT, to help people develop new products and services around these areas. And as travel managers, sustainability managers, or travelers, you need to look very carefully at the impact this is having on your business, positive and negative, and include it in discussions with employees. So people first becomes a new mantra. And then, of course, there's real mechanics you can put in place, like certified sustainable business travel hotels with added health and well-being, etc. All these things are under discussion at the moment. And I think the biggest crime would be to do nothing and say it'll all go away, because it won't. What you've got here is a whole list of issues that are new in many ways. Certainly the amount and the intensity is new in many ways compared to what we had before. And if you look at carbon, there's lots of talk about carbon. I think it's improved a lot since when I first started, 10 years ago or more, on measuring carbon footprints, but it's still way down. You see lots of reports say only about 75% of travellers are involved in the sustainability approach, or measure their carbon footprint, or get involved in any way. So I don't know how true that is, but more and more companies now are taking CO2 serious. More governments are saying you should do, and putting laws in place. Certainly in Europe, there are now laws for the larger companies to show that they have to reduce their carbon footprint. And if not, they get fined. So it's not a nice to do anymore, and not a pleasant thing to do. It's a must business issue to address. Programs on the subject are rising. There's more and more conversations. You see the TV all the time talking about the CO2. We talk about climate change, and it's just the big issue. I wish it had been like this, not for the reasons it is now, but I wish it had been like this 10 years ago when we started, when Horst and I first got involved in these kind of subjects. It was really hard work, but now it's on people's minds more so. And low carbon models are growing, not just in transportation, but in the way we measure and the whole way of living. So protecting the planet is a second big criteria that we're focusing on. The third one is balancing the books. I said maybe use sustainability as an investment, measure the ability and the value in travel based on not just the finance, but the impact it has on your share price, because you're creating value, and look at all the things around value creation that sustainability can do. Again, I work with a company that saved, one company saved over 30% of their travel budget by just changing the way they assess it, the way they measure it, their suppliers they work with. They saved over 30% of the CO2. And the travelers were still happy because they were still able to travel and do what they would normally do, but in a different way, a more mindful way, which is what I'll come on to in a second. And new positions and education and training. Again, there's a phrase that's used, which is called mind the gap. It's where companies produce a wonderful sustainability report, but when you go inside the organization, talk to employees, at the bottom, they don't know what's going on. They haven't a clue what their sustainability program is. So there's a big gap between the top of an organization and the bottom. It's getting better, but I can still assure you there's lots of companies like that. And the fourth one is managing. And we use the word mindful because I think there needs to be a different approach to management. The old textbooks to management going back years are still fine, of course they are, but it's the people element. So continue with the best of the past, but learn new mindful ways. Now, mindful is an expression we've chosen because it's all about awareness through paying attention. Don't listen to your employees, listen to your customers, listen to people around you. What are they saying to you? And don't dismiss it, but listen on purpose. So you understand what they're saying, make it a discussion, talk about it, but be in the moment. Don't talk about what could happen and what did happen. These things are happening now. So pay attention, get people involved, and more importantly, not be judgmental. When we talk about the areas of equity and so on, people are very judgmental. We've got to be careful to not be judgmental in today's world because it will go against you. So take responsibility for your actions, maintain a healthy balance between the four pillars I've just described. But in particular corporations, really do need to think, in my opinion, about a different way of traveling to bring it back better, as I keep saying. And the fifth bit is to review your travel program. People have travel policies. Many companies have got brilliant travel policies, but by and large, they tend to be a set of rules. So we've created a 5-step program to look at how you can develop your own travel program, either yourself. If you're a salesperson, how can you help your companies develop a travel program? There's many examples of salespeople working with their customers and identifying ways in which they can not only improve their company's performance, but help the company by providing data. Point 2, providing data, and helping them reduce the CO2. So it's a team game, and getting support from around the place. But again, number 4, looking at well-being. How can you as a supplier help your company? Because people will value that. If you're working with a corporation and you're providing them with ideas as to how they can improve their business, you know, history shows, and current history shows, that they will stick with you. They will value what you're doing. Value is another word that should come through. You know, you need to give value to your customers, or bring value back to your suppliers as well. And the 5th one, of course, is communicating, gaining support, reporting, publishing a program, and most importantly, from a corporate point of view, delivering a return on investment. Money's not free. These things don't come at a zero cost. So going back to the 4 Ps, balance in the books is really important. Don't go off the scale either end. You need to get the balance right, and it takes time. And following a 5-step program like that can help you do that in a straightforward way that most people can buy into, and in particular understand. So on that note, I'd like to just briefly mention at the end here that GSTC are introducing a new program, a business travel online program, aimed at trying to answer some of those questions that I've just raised, working through the four Ps, encouraging debate, but importantly, providing core competencies for sustainability in a new generation. So this is a program that starts in May, and we'll tell you more. You can go on the website and find out more, but it provides core competencies for sustainability in the new generation. Looks at the learning theory. You know, theory and practice will be a key part of what we're doing, and help you develop new strategies of your own, working in groups, working together with others, sharing experiences, sharing doubts, sharing thoughts, and hopefully a new way of delivering these kind of programs in a way that people can buy into and go back to that workplace in a very positive way, and something they can deliver to their company. So, as I say, it's a way of looking at sustainability best practice, focus on travel management, develop a new business-led approach to sustainable development, and coming back better. And we've kind of coined this word based on these thoughts. Every step back is an invitation to rethink, evolve, and come back better. It's also based on the United Nations logo, or words of build back better, because that was developed following crisis wars in countries where there was a need to build and do all sorts of building, not just on material things, but on people. So we've come back with the same thing, calling it come back better. And we want to find ways in which we can come back better. It's not a matter of stopping traveling anymore or anything like that. We've got to find a new way of doing things and come back better. The program is 4 weeks, 2 sessions a week, 1 theory, 1 practice, of 90 minutes each session, with an orientation right at the very beginning of 1 hour. It's also about practical examples, like I've said, expert speakers. We've got a good level of speakers lined up. Some of them are really global travel managers, experts in some of the subjects I've talked about. So, and a new set of speakers that maybe you've not seen too often around the place. The participants, as I said, were sustainability managers, travel suppliers, etc. And the benefits to anybody who joins us will be that it will help you build your own company travel program, or your own program, help your customers, and be more actively responsible. The case studies, the expert speakers, and the theory and practice are all designed to help you do that. As I said, it's live online with Zoom. Material and sources will be available online, and we share issues and successes. At the end of the program, students can opt to take an examination and receive a professional certificate in sustainable business travel. There is already a professional certificate in sustainable tourism, which has been in place for a good number of years now, very successful. And I tell you, it's really valued in the tourism business. And it's our hope that this certificate will be really valued in the business travel business. And that's from GSTC as well. More online as later. That's a sample of the certificate. And so I hope to see you all in May. And I'll hand you back now to Roy.
So great. So now we start the Q&A session. So I see that we already have quite a few questions lining up. Let's start with Scott is asking if we can see perhaps a quick example or a short example on the 5 points that you mentioned for a sustainable business program. Burden, can you perhaps go back a few slides back to show the slide that Scott is referring to?
Sorry, do you want me to go through it? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Bernard, continue.
This is a model we use that says when you're starting out, you need to understand where you are. If you're in a large company that's got a sustainable program, then fantastic. You'll see it in the documentation the company puts out. But if you're only just starting, if you don't know, if you have anything for business travel and you don't know what the targets are, then the start point is to work around your company and get information. Understand whether is your company in the game or not. If it is, who's doing it? Who's the person responsible? I'll quickly go through it because we could talk for hours on this one. The second one is sourcing data. Once you know what your company's position is, it's either zero or they've got some targets. If they've got targets, then you need to source the data, particularly for CO2, but other negatives as well. So understand where the data is coming from and then create smart choices. And it's not about stopping travel. We never once suggest that people stop traveling, but you've got to travel smarter. It's an old expression, smart choices. People have used it all over the place, but it comes back to mindful ways of working and the responsibilities that you have to your company. Do you go every week to America just for a meeting with a colleague? Or do you go once a month? Where do you get the value from your travel? So it's kind of thinking it through. And there's lots of examples of smart choices where it's worked without impacting the cost to the company or the benefits to the company. Once you've done that, is get your suppliers on site. If you're traveling with American Airlines or British Airways, work with them, get them to help you source your data. Or your hotels. You can't easily get hotel data sometimes. If you're booking through a travel management company, is all bookings going through that or is some online? So get the information together to understand how your supply chain can help you if you're a corporate. The fourth one is social and economic aspects. I've covered that quite a lot earlier today. But it's understanding where does your company stand? Do you have an environmental, DEI policy? Do you have a well-being? What's your relationship with your safety company? And then the fifth one is, for me, in most cases, is the important one. Is communicating the program. Once you've gone through those stages, you've written your business travel program. You've got your travel policy, which is in there, which is the rules I said earlier. But then communicate, gain support, report, publish the program, get travel champions, excite people, get them wanting to support what the company is trying to do. So, sorry, that was fairly quick, but is that sufficient? Sorry.
Yeah,
much,
probably the most difficult is the first one, really to start and getting started. And then you really have to set a stage and pull together a guiding team, find out who is really already into sustainability in your company. Do you have a sustainability manager? Can you talk to them and set some first steps to it? Find who from your traveler base who is really into sustainability and work with them. What do they want? What they can do? What do they can offer for becoming a more sustainable traveler program? So You know, it's always the first step that is probably the most difficult.
Often called baby steps. Little nickname we used a while ago. Baby steps. I think everybody understands.
Thank you for answering this question. And just another quick comment on, to Scott. These are some of the things that we will review more lengthily and more in depth in the course. And host, perhaps you can also answer this question from Katarina. I'll read it out loud. Are there any current studies on how much interest involvement there is in sustainability and human rights in the business travel sector compared to leisure travel? Is it true that the business travel sector is much less aware of the issue of human rights than the leisure sector? And I would, after host, if you would like to say something, I would also like to mention a comment afterwards.
Probably, Roy, that's even more for you to answer on the leisure side.
Yeah, so if I'll answer it then, well, Katarina, it's quite difficult to, in that sense, it's very difficult to separate it if we speak about, for example, accommodations. I see that we have a few participants here from Bangkok, a city that many people are familiar with, that is being used both for leisure and for business. Well, let's speak of pre-COVID situation. Many people came just to the city for attending a conference or an event and perhaps stayed a little bit longer. And then they conduct leisure activities. So the clear separation is a little bit more difficult when we speak about these accommodations. It's easier to speak about, perhaps if we speak about Thailand, about a small village in the southern part of Thailand, which might not be relevant for business travelers. So in that sense, there isn't very clear distinction or researchers that we are aware of that compare the two, rather than looking at everything as the travel industry and then focus more, providing a little bit more light on the business travel aspect.
Yeah, let me also add on that in regard on human trafficking, which is part of then the human rights. And I know that many flight attendants are going through a training on how to identify human trafficking on airplanes. So, and I think it's also very, very important for business traveler to get this training to really identify when this crime is really happening in an airplane, when you know, young men or young women are going to be trafficked from one place to another. And there's some specific areas that you can focus on and identify when this is happening and how can you report that. So it's also very important for business travel, because you cannot imagine that, you know, the business traveler sits right next to an offender and a victim of human trafficking.
Yes, and also add to that there are plenty of accommodations and other tour providers that are involved both in the leisure and the business travel sector that are working, for example, with the ethic code as an example of an association that promotes knowledge and training of such things that host has mentioned now. Let's move to next questions. Let's see what we have here. The question from Colin is quite large, so to answer in a few minutes in a webinar. So Colin, if you would like to rewrite your question a little bit more focused, so we'll gladly answer, but this one is a little bit too large to answer in 1 minute. So we'll move to another one. Okay. Well, I see quite a lot of questions. Okay. What I see quite a lot of questions are for the course itself. So I have to scroll down. All right, let's take a question for Mark. How can we be confident the work we do on sustainability is measurable and counts toward our targets? What is the recommended reporting methodology? Horst, would you like to answer that? Or Bernard?
Okay, well, in our targets, I'm struggling with that. Reporting. But now you're on mute, so.
Bernard, you're on mute.
Did you put me on mute, Roy? Purpose. So I would say the question is not quite clear, but if you're looking at saying, how do we, if we set a target, how do we get the data to get to that target? Is that what it is? Is that the question?
Let me read it again.
Yeah.
I don't see it now.
But if that's what it was, then
yeah.
One of the key issues when creating a carbon footprint is getting the right data. And business travel is quite widespread. So it depends on your policy, your program, depends whether everybody's going through the same booking channel, because you could go from everything being quite neatly together, or it'll be all spread. If some people are booking online privately, some people are booking through a travel agent, some people are booking with the airlines. You got a devil's job in pulling all the data together. But the key thing is to get your data together, what you've got. And you don't have to get everything. If you're starting out from fresh, you don't need everything. Just get some things that you can measure and then start to build on it. These programs, you could be set up fairly quickly, but they will take years to work through and develop into really impactful one, so to such a point where you can start offsetting and offloading the additional CO2 you've got in your business. So data collection is a whole subject in itself. But
yeah,
did
CO2,
that answer the question?
Yeah, CO2 is I think still easier to track and to measure. Let's say, but there are tools out there that identifies how many hours a traveler is on the road, how many days they're already speaking on business purpose. So all of that, would be on the social side of it to check really the well-being of your traveler, and that is really important also that you measure that, and if one traveler is traveling for the 10th time to China from Germany, so you can really the human resource department can intervene and can ask, do you really want to do it again, travel a 10th time to China? You have a small family, think about your children, and they will miss you. So basically what I would say, then a travel manager or travel program can track that information as well, and then address it to the traveler, to the employee, and ask them if they're still able and willing to do that travel. The duty of care part of it.
Very well. Let's take another question. Here, let's take a question from Scott. Well, again, that's I think could you offer an example of a change to a corporate travel policy that a CTM might push for? So again, that's going to be one example out of a large, more holistic view on how to plan for something like that. But let's hear an example. Horst or Bernard, would you like to share a quick example to Scott on how one example of a change that a CTM can offer to corporate travel policy?
Yeah, I can give you one. I won't name the company, because I don't have their permission to broadcast it. But it's a company in the United States. Actually, it's global, but this happened in the United States, where they were looking to reduce down the CO2 from their car, motor vehicle part of the program. And they worked with their local supplier. They went to, well, they have many suppliers around, but they went to one of the big 2 or 3 companies and said, look, can we work together to reduce our carbon footprint and our costs? Because what was happening was that employees from this company were going to their local car showroom, car agency, and on a regular basis. So I was to come in, talk to you, Roy, and we get very friendly. And so on my policy, it says it's a medium car that I should have. But we're friends, so you now give me a 3-litre Jeep or something, because that's good. The problem with that is you've got not only a high CO2 out of that, but you've got high costs. So what the company did is measure the cost of the petrol that they'd used, or diesel, for these vehicles, and the cost of the rental, and then the CO2 as well, and put them together. And they then came up with this way of working that said, we'll deal with you, Roy, and your company, but if we order a mid-sized car, that's what we get, okay? And straight away, they saved a fortune in petrol and rental. No rental costs were higher, but petrol and CO2. And then they developed that, and also said to some companies in California, for example, electric vehicles are now available in that area. So can you get electric vehicles, and we'll choose them instead. So bit by bit, it took them, quite a few months, but bit by bit, they addressed the issues of fuel, CO2, and cost. And at the end of that, I can't remember the exact number, but at the end of the first year, they'd saved something like 20% of costs and something like 15–20% of CO2. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was a really effective program, and they've now rolled it out. So the example I said earlier, working with suppliers is key. The supplier did well because he actually got more business, because more people went to them directly, because that was the policy, whereas they used to go to friends and families, this sort of thing. So it really worked effectively. For what I know, in the last 2 years, it's got even better. That's one example.
Okay. Let's go with the next one. We have quite a lot of here.
Yeah, I see the one from Lenny asking, will the course delve into SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, and current calculations formula for carbon emissions, and how and who can modernize them? The short answer is yes. We will do what we can to incorporate that into our training program and delve into it. On the sustainable aviation fuel side, we probably show what sustainable aviation fuel is, where it's coming from. Is it biofuel? Is it coming from synthetic aviation fuel, so with direct capture from the CO2 from the air together with the hydrogen, and then how far the industry is for that, and calculating formula for carbon emissions. Yes, we're going to go into that as well, into more detail in the training class.
I'd like to answer a quick question to a comment here in the chat by Teresa. From a consumer point of view, how does GSTC plan to signpost and support individuals to making more sustainable purchases? There are many sustainable labels. That is indeed true. From the GSTC perspective, we mostly work with behind the scenes. So we work with governments, we work with those entities in the travel industry that influence others. So in that sense, we, for example, a number of OTAs are now highlighting accommodations as sustainable accommodations, being certified per the GSTC framework, and also encourage the hotels, the partners that are on these platforms to seek certification according to the GSTC. So at the moment, the GSTC does not directly speak to the travelers rather than to the providers. That's how we act, but there are plenty of organizations that are promoting GSTC members, individuals and organizations that promote it to the travelers themselves. Okay.
Right, do we get all these questions, or can we contact the one who's directing the question to us so we can answer them?
Yes. So
offline.
All questions here, if any question will not be answered online, we will reply to them offline. So we will do that. So worry not. And we still have a few more minutes, so let's take a few more questions here online. Well, just let's raise a comment from Ami Taylor, a comment rather than a question. Companies often include questions in their RFPs about human rights to make sure they are compliant with the Modern Slavery Act. Indeed, as we've heard from Bernard before, you can influence those that you work with, and through an RFP and request for some more information. That's one way to do it.
Roy, can I just add one point to that for me?
Yes, of course.
You're absolutely right that RFPs do gather that information, but it would be very useful though to challenge the company to see what they actually do with it. It's like carbon emissions as well. They collect information because it's seen to be the right thing to do. But I've known, I'm sure Horst has as well, companies that collect it all, but it actually plays no part in the decision made which supplier to take on or whatever it is. So it's actually gathering the information is one thing, doing something with it is something completely different.
Horst, Bernard, do you see any questions that you would like to pick from the list here?
I'm trying to find one who we can give a short answer to.
Yeah, exactly, that's the the challenge.
There's one from Nicole there about international organizations to deliver common standards to measure economic activities. Nicole Bruggeri? At the beginning or the end, I'm not sure which.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't see it, but please go ahead and if you can read out loud the question first.
It was quite a long question, but the crux of the question is which official body or international organization should be appointed to deliver a clear and common standard to measure economic activities, environmental, social, governance impacts. That's a really good question because at the moment there isn't one official body, and Horst and I have been working on this for a while to try and sort out if we can find or create a body that could do that, because I think it's really important, particularly when you look at measuring carbon emissions. There are many different ways of measuring and different standards, and it gets quite annoying when, as a buyer, I have a report from one airline, a report from another, a report from the hotel, and they're all using different base methods. So I can't actually compare. I can't compare two airlines to say which is better. One might look better, but they're using a different calculation. When you actually go into it, convert everything, it actually isn't better many times. So I agree. At the moment, I'm not aware there's anything like that, but I do believe that there should be, and fully support what you said. Totally. We will do what we can. Could take us a while.
Yeah, again, we would like to answer all the questions. And if you see a question that you also would like to have an answer to, please write an email to business.travel@gstcouncil.org and send us your question, and we are happy to answer them.
You can see the email in the chat.
There's one there from Meryl Isherwood.
Mm-hmm.
How can we convince companies to introduce and manage a proper sustainability program? She's been trying for years, but there is a reluctance to take this seriously. Any ideas from attendees or panelists? That's a really good question, because some companies have got a policy at board level that are bought into the subject. Many companies don't. I think I quoted a figure that said something like 75% of business travelers don't get any information from their company. It's a difficult one. The only thing I can suggest you do is learn on yourself, get some basic examples of what you're trying to achieve, what you think the company can achieve, and then talk to people around you and create some champions. People who are like-minded, so you could build 3 or 4 of you. There's a lady I know in America who did this. This is where the baby steps thing came from. She talked to a few people and found that her sustainability manager was actually in the UK. Never heard of her in her life, but she was in the US. So she contacted her, and bit by bit they worked together, and eventually they started to build a program. So it's just a matter of going out, talking to people, showing them enthusiasm for what you're trying to do, get people on side, and bit by bit you'll potentially could create quite a lot of momentum within the company, and embarrassment as well at senior level if they're doing nothing.
I see a question from Rita, and can you share a detailed sustainable business travel training program so that we can see how relevant it would be for us as travel managers? Yes, you can go and on the GSTC website, and when you ask for more information, there are the course syllabus, and you can get information about how detailed they are.
Yeah, so again, we received quite a few questions on the course. So I sent here again in the, oh, sorry, I sent it exactly here. I sent it again here in the chat. You can find information about the upcoming course that will begin in early May. And feel free also, whether it's the course or other type of engagement with the GSTC, which is not necessarily related to the course, feel free to email us at business.travel@gstcouncil.org. We're happy to collaborate and work together. Another comment that I should mention is that the GSTC is a nonprofit organization registered in the United States, and we really rely on members of GSTC to be part of this movement towards sustainability and pushing these 4 pillars of sustainability in our industry. So any engagement, you're welcome to work together with us on these issues. We highly welcome it.
Mm-hmm. And we also do have a business travel working group within the GSTC, and we're still looking for some qualified members. So if you're interested to work with us in driving more sustainability towards the business travel industry, then you're welcome to join us in this business travel working group.
I just, one thought from me, Roy. There's quite a few questions about carbon footprints, about creating them, developing them, and whatever. On the course we're talking about, week 2, I think it is, we will actually go through the creation. You can create your own carbon footprint based on a sample. It's a case study. We could physically go through it and explain exactly how these things are put together. And then you can go back and create your own in your office or your home, whichever it is.
Very well. So I think we answered the questions that we've received. So I'll say it again. Welcome to send us emails at business.travel@gstcouncil.org. Find more information about how to utilize the GSTC criteria that is available to anyone in the public domain, meaning free of charge, on our website. And of course, more information on the course is also available on our website. Great. Thank you all for quite a few that stayed until the end. Very nice. Horst, Bernard, thank you for your insights and sharing this with us all today or tonight, depends where you are. That's it. See you later, hopefully next month in the course. Bye, everyone.
Bye.